Ladies and gentlemen, this is huge. And a lot of people say, well, it's just an $8,000 fine or $105,000 for the Democratic National Committee and $8,000 for Madam Secretary's campaign. Who cares? And the issue, ladies and gentlemen, is the following. Without the Danchenko indictment, I doubt this takes place. I doubt the Federal Election Commission imposes these fines. And I'll just read you the New York Post article. Clinton campaign DNC fined by Federal Election Commission for lying about Steele dossier payments. Now, imagine if the reverse were true. Imagine if it was Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, Richard Grenell, John Ratcliffe, Kash Patel, Devin Nunes. Imagine if they purchased a dossier. Imagine. We can't even talk about legitimate emails. The president's son had endless incriminating data, and they say, well, you can't prove that U.S. foreign policy was influenced. Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. When the vice president at the time is saying that we're going to force out a prosecutor and you're not going to get $1 billion, that's official U.S. policy. Now, we don't know who backed him up on that policy. People say, oh, yeah, everyone agreed. There was so much corruption there. Well, then why did you impeach Trump for a little time, like for keeping weapon shipments and aid for a certain time period to ensure that it got to the right people or the right government leaders? So the president at the time, same president of that country as today, stated that Trump never pressured him. So Zelensky stated Trump never pressured him. And the gap, or the time that Trump withheld the assistance, was like not even a couple months or a month or so, a couple of weeks. It doesn't even matter how long they got the assistance. There wasn't this widespread investigation into Hunter or his father that the federal government is now investigating. So, the whole thing is they impeached Trump on the belief he pressured another country to investigate Biden when the federal government was investigating Hunter at that moment during impeachment for millions upon millions of dollars he obtained through oligarchs and through business relationships with other countries that were clear pay-to-play schemes. And then you have the vice president at the time forcing out a prosecutor who's linked to the oil and gas company that his son is on the board of directors of, and nobody could find any correlation with Biden's words, but everyone could find endless correlations with Trump withholding military assistance for a tiny moment of time. And the president of that country, who is championed and lionized, and I agree with that, I think he's doing a heroic thing, but at the same time, I think there has to be negotiations for peace. And like I've been saying, they're going to negotiate. The end game is that they promise to be neutral and not join that alliance, the alliance, in Europe. I'm speaking in roundabout terms only because of the algorithm, but you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially if you watch this channel. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Hit subscribe. Tell your friends about this channel. We're almost at 196,000 subscribers, ladies and gentlemen. The Durham Probe Special Counsel. Okay? So I talked about a whole bunch of things in the past 4 minutes. Let me just break them down for you so it's, a little bit more concise. Durham Probe Special Counsel indicted Igor Danchenko. He was one of the sources for the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier was complete nonsense. It was just a bunch of lies, fabricated fantasies, almost certainly based on Bill Clinton's actual life. So media, Chuck Todd, MSNBC, CNN, The Washington Post, The New York Times, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, all of these people talked about Trump in a Moscow hotel room, but if they wouldn't touch actual emails that show pay-to-play schemes and really despicable behavior or very bizarre behavior from Hunter, and direct links between the money he was getting and 10% or whatever percentage for the big man, which was his father, the vice president at the time, the current president, mashed potato brains. Media wouldn't talk about what was negative or detrimental to the Democratic Party because media is an extension of the Democratic Party. You have a situation now where the Federal Election Commission, finally 6 years after the Steele dossier was purchased, fined the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee. The fines stem from a complaint originally filed in 2018 by the Coolidge-Reagan Foundation. So you have the Coolidge-Reagan Foundation filing this. It was rightfully so. They filed, the complaints. The Clinton campaign, the DNC, paid more than $1 million combined to powerful Democratic law firms Perkins Coie, which engaged Fusion GPS to dig up dirt on Trump. Fusion GPS, in turn, hired former British spy Christopher Steele, whose namesake dossier included allegations that Russian security services possessed a tape of Trump in Moscow hotel room. So it's interesting. The Democratic Party utilized information allegedly obtained by people associated with the Kremlin. That's okay. That's okay. But today you hear, Trump is asking Vladimir for help. Oh my God, the second time he asked them for help. What's the help? Information on Bernie Sanders being cheated. Hunter's, endless corruption. They don't want to look into the mirror. They're the ones who undermined democracy. They're the ones who did not transfer power peacefully. Trump had nothing to do, zero to do with January. Aside from he shouldn't have had those demonstrations that day. There was no good that could have come from it. What happened with President Trump towards the end of his presidency was that he lost control of the media narrative. He lost control. And thank God, when they banned him from Twitter, that was the best thing to happen to Trump. Because Democrats just live to oppose Trump. You see, Jon Stewart, for example. We can, go all over the place here. Jon Stewart has this new show, okay? Where he went after Andrew Sullivan. And he went after this conservative who is basically a never-Trump, anti-Trump conservative, but good friends with Christopher Hitchens, really wonderful conservative thinker. I disagree with him on Trump, but he has very thoughtful, educated, intelligent viewpoints, Andrew Sullivan. He's a very honest, thoughtful individual, okay? Even though I disagree with him on his... He has somewhat of an apoplectic view of Donald Trump, but okay, we'll leave that aside. Jon Stewart had a panel on his show, I think it's a show on Apple, where Jon Stewart, good human being, does a lot of work to help veterans, good human being, okay? I actually wrote a Hill article defending him many years back. He was talking about systemic issues and the fact that certain demographics within the United States of America, because our history, are still suffering today. One thing Jon Stewart didn't tell you, especially when he focused on skin color, is that Joe Biden stated that you are not who you are if you don't vote for him. I'm not gonna just out of respect, I'm not gonna say the exact quote, because guess what? It's worse than anything Trump said. If that's not the prime example, the epitome of supremacy, I don't know what is. Go to pick a point on the map of the United States of America where there's the most impoverished group of demographic group. The city will be run by Democrats, Democratic mayors, Democratic city council, Democrats. And when they talk about skin color supremacy, it's a smokescreen. They don't want to talk about the Democratic Party controlling pretty much every major institution, from not just Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart. You're talking about the House, the Senate the House for the past 4 years, the Senate for the past 2 years, the presidency for the past 2 years, all Democrats. Okay? Intelligence operatives, Democratic loyalists. Different institutions within the country run by primarily liberal Democrats. What have they been focused on? Have they been focused on wealth inequality? Because wealth inequality lessened under Trump. There was record low Black and Latino unemployment under Trump. Trump did it better among African American and Black voters and non-white voters. He did better. So everything Jon Stewart was trying to level at Andrew Sullivan was complete nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. The Democratic Party presides over all the systemic injustices that they claim to oppose. And they caused it. Biden wrote to the crime bill. Somebody tell Jon Stewart and those panelists that the 100-to-1 sentencing disparity within that crime bill, where you had tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people suffering, the systemic injustice that they claim to oppose, that was written by Joe Biden, who then made insulting comments to Charlemagne the God to his face. And then they talk about and pontificate about, this and that, and you should feel guilty. Why vote Democrat? So you don't feel guilty, but why? By pushing Democrat. That's very good, very good. You always vote Democrat. So Jon Stewart, the underlying theme is the Democrats are good. Very good. And Trump and the Republicans are bad. And you know what? It's the history of this country. Well, yes, the history of this country. There are systemic issues. The Democrats should have focused on these systemic issues since they ask for absolute allegiance and obedience from demographic groups. If you have a demographic group voting 90% for the Democratic Party every election, then the Democratic Party should devote its entire platform to addressing the needs of that demographic group, but they don't. They buy the Steele dossier. They focus on Trump and democracy, while they undermine democracy and cheat Bernie Sanders. While inflation, crime, all the gang violence, lack of employment opportunities, all are presided by Democrats. Okay? You go to any city in the country, even within red states, where you have demographics that are impoverished or suffering because of systemic issues, the mayor or the city council will almost certainly be Democrats. If there's a systemic, widespread systemic injustice, it was almost certainly perpetuated initially by Democrats in the early 90s, let's say with the crime bill, for example, or allowed to fester with Democrats who didn't care about perhaps elevating people from poverty, or ignored by Democrats because they only focus on Trump and Russia and things that give them political power. They care about politics. That's why they went after Trump with the Steele dossier. They don't care about alleviating poverty, which is the essence of any injustice. The poorest areas of the country are presided over by Democrats, by and large. Why doesn't Jon Stewart talk about this? Why? Because he can't talk about this. Because then, Jon Stewart, Howard Stern, these are like relics. These are like dinosaurs who, especially Howard Stern, who they made their name for themselves, especially Howard Stern, in an age where, you could free speech and, comedy or pushing the envelope or speaking truth to power or whatever. Now they can't be who they truly are. So they have to adopt these absurd ideologies that don't have a geography. These ideologies don't point to any place on a map, because if you point to any place on a map, you will see, Democratic mayor, Democratic governor, okay? This person lost their life because of brutality in a Democratic-run city. Where have we seen that before? And of course the problems are not only the Democratic Party, but only the Democratic Party demands allegiance and obedience and complete and utter loyalty from voting groups. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe to this channel. They don't care about systemic injustices. Believe me, I was on the left my whole life. And these injustices exist. They were perpetuated by and large by primarily Democratic politicians. and they were allowed to fester by Democratic politicians. And Democrats now are using systemic issues as a sleight of hand and illusion to say, hey, we really care about these things, but look at Trump and Russia and Stormy and this and that. They use people like Jon Stewart to retain power, political power, or gain political power through Hollywood, while at the same time really ignoring issues that fester and become worse under their watch, like inflation, like gas prices, like a recession. I love when people talk about systemic issues. They don't see what's going on now. You have only Democrats running things, and everything is worse than at any point within Trump's administration. Trump, we had what? 2%, less than 2% inflation, less than $3 gas prices, economic growth. And he wanted to open up the economy. Oh no, it's too soon. Literally everything Democrats and experts and all the wonderful people who are just so moral, everything they do hurts the people and the American electorate that they claim to defend. But again, it's all a sleight of hand and illusion. Let's focus on these noble issues that you helped create, unfortunately, that you ignored. Democrats care only about opposing Trump. If they actually cared about alleviating poverty, they would have to actually look within the cities that they run. They don't want to do that. They would much rather pontificate and judge and condemn. Much easier. Especially with people like Jon Stewart calling Andrew Sullivan, prejudice. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. The fact that the Democratic Party purchased a Steele dossier shows you everything you need to know about what they truly care about. Give me your thoughts.